Donald Trump is willing to go to jail to protect your First Amendment rights and his First Amendment rights. They're all our rights. So we'll tell you exactly what he said about that. Also, what keeps Elon Musk up at night? Well, we'll hear it right from the Musk's mouth. Also, the governor of New York is a bigot. We've got all that and a whole lot more coming up right now. I'm Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry. Good afternoon. It's noon Eastern time, and we are streaming live at Rumble. Come join the party. If you're watching us after the fact, you're missing out. It's Rumble. That's the place to be. And it's the Larry podcast channel over there at the Town Hall Megalopolis. We're a megalopolis. Town Hall isn't just a website. We're a media empire with townhall.com, redstate.com, hotair.com, pjmedia.com, twitchy.com. and bearingarms.com. Should I leave out the .coms now? I feel like I'm in the 90s. It seems superfluous. You all know the extension to use. Anyway, those were our websites, and we'd love it if you could continue to patronize our sites, share our stories, and even become a VIP member. If you use the word Larry at checkout, you'll get 50% off your Town Hall VIP membership. That gives you a whole lot of exclusive content, including videos that are created just for VIP members, live streams that include interaction with a lot of our writers and columnists, exclusive podcasts just for VIP members, and you also get an ad-free experience on the sites. That's a lot. And you'll also support the great journalism that my colleagues do over on all of those sites I just mentioned. So please do that if you can. We'd appreciate it. All right. Yesterday, Donald Trump emerged from the courthouse, and I think maybe he had an earbud in and he was listening to our podcast during the day in court, because I was railing against the unbelievable, unconstitutional gag order that has been placed on the president of the United States. He's the defendant here, right? You realize that whenever there are gag orders put in place by judges, like 99.9% of the time, it's to protect the defendant from leaks out of the DA's office, the state. See, the prosecutors, they have all the power here, right? Rights are supposed to protect we, the people, the citizen, from the state throwing their power at us and taking our rights away from us by incarcerating us, or worse, even taking our life if it's a capital case. That's why our entire system has been set up to protect us from the all-powerful state, from being tyrannical and authoritarian against us. And so when there's ever a gag order put in place, oftentimes it's against the prosecutors from trying the case in the public square, from possibly poisoning the jury pool against the defendant. I've spoken to multiple legal analysts on the air and off the air about this gag order, and they said it is unprecedented that the defendant is not allowed to defend himself in the public square. And yesterday's ruling, fining him for $1,000 and threatening Trump with jail for literally speaking the truth about Michael Cohen, the prosecution's number one star witness, by saying he's a perjurer. Last time he was under oath, he lied. He had to go to jail for that. That's the truth, and he got penalized for that. That's why I was railing against it. I was talking about how unconstitutional it is, how the entire shenanigans should be thrown out immediately, but we sadly have a process here, and we have to wait for it to get overturned eventually. Well, Donald Trump heard all of that. Well, I don't know, he heard it, but I think he did, because when he emerged from the courthouse, he had this to say.
And it's a disgrace. And then you have the other thing that maybe is even more disgraceful, is the gag order, where I have to watch every word I tell you people. You ask me a question, a simple question, I'd like to give it, but I can't talk about it. Because this judge has given me a gag order and said you'll go to jail if you violate it. And frankly, you know what? Our Constitution is much more important than jail. It's not even close. I'll do that sacrifice any day. But what's happening here is a disgrace, and the appellate courts ought to get involved.
Wow. So basically, he just said, put up or shut up, Judge. The Constitution's more important than jail. I'm going to go ahead and speak my mind. I mean, he didn't there. He did use caution, and he said, listen, I'm not allowed to say this. I'm not allowed to say that. But then he says the Constitution is more important than going to jail. I'll make that sacrifice any day. He's ready to martyr himself behind bars for the sake of the Constitution. Let's hear it one more time, at least that part of it, and let's talk through exactly how this might play out. This is a fascinating wrinkle, actually.
So you'll go to jail if you violate it. And frankly, you know what? Our Constitution is much more important than jail. It's not even close. I'll do that sacrifice any day.
Okay, so it's interesting if you think about the trajectory of Donald Trump's criminal issues, starting with the first indictment well over a year ago now, right? It was, I guess, before the 2022 midterm elections, if I remember right, when the indictment started, and I believe Alvin Bragg's may have been the first one, maybe the E. Jean Carroll one. That moment began the trajectory of Donald Trump growing in popularity with the Republican base. It was at that moment where Ron DeSantis will tell you the prospects of him becoming the nominee for the Republicans died. The second they brought charges against Donald Trump, civil and criminal, there was no looking back, because we Republicans see exactly what they're doing to him, and we're not going to play that game. We're not going to let the left, the Democrats, or the media get away with this. And through the course of the last 2 years, as he has had his days in court, even when he lost the civil case to E. Jean Carroll, the American people, or at least the Republicans, have seen it to be the sham political kangaroo court that it is. And so his support continues to grow. Loyalty around him continues to grow. And I know that Rachel Maddow can't believe it, and Jen Psaki can't believe it. I don't understand. He's been convicted and the Republicans still support him. Yeah, because it's all bull. That's why. Had to find my button there. And so now we've reached sort of an ebb in that, right? It's sort of plateaued. He's now doing the criminal trial. He's now, facing the day-to-day rigor of the trial. He's leading he's leading Biden in national polls as well as regional polls in each of the battleground states. Imagine, if you will, if Donald Trump is actually thrown in jail unilaterally, not by a verdict of a jury, but by the emotional reaction of a temperamental judge who doesn't like that Donald Trump is actually using his First Amendment rights of free speech. Imagine if the judge actually says, you said this, you tweeted this, you're going to jail for speaking and for tweeting on social media. And they throw the nominee for the Republican Party and a former president of the United States behind bars. Well, not only does he increase in his martyr status, not just with Republicans, but for independent observers who are watching this and recognize that it is unfair. Over 50% of the American people right now think the Biden administration is using the judicial process as a political weapon against Donald Trump. That was a poll from last week. Not only does he immediately increase the martyr factor here, but what happens next? Well, the Trump lawyers will appeal that. They will see right now this unconstitutional gag order. That's just baked in the cake. He can't appeal that, is my understanding. He has to wait until after the trial is over, and then they'll add all of these things to the appeal. But if they throw him in jail, well, then he can ask for injunctive relief. He can actually go to a higher court and say he can't do this. And then he could actually face another victory. But this time, again, he's not fighting for himself or his own freedom, as he just put it. He's fighting for the First Amendment. Suddenly, Donald Trump becomes a martyr for the Constitution. He becomes a warrior for our rights. Think about that. And once again, politically speaking, this entire fiasco that they have constructed out of whole cloth that has nothing to do with the law, nothing to do with judicial precedent or jurisprudence, but everything to do with harming this man and harming you, the voters who would like to support him. It all comes back to bite them in the again. I didn't need to bleep that. I can say ass. So that's how this could play out. And I wonder, listen, everyone says Trump plays 4D chess. I'm not so sure about that, but I also think that he's pretty smart politically. And he's got media savvy. And he understands where his support is right now. And he understands that as of this moment, this trial is actually hurting Biden and the Democrats more than it's hurting him. Now, that could change. No one knows what's going to happen if he gets convicted from something. But if all along the way, the entire process is seen to be unconstitutional and unfair to the average observer, then even a conviction will have a mitigating quality to it. So when he stands up and says the Constitution is more important than going to jail, and then if they actually do throw him in jail, I mean, I want to get ahead of myself. I don't mean to project too far ahead because I'm not a real good, I'm not going to give you my predictions on stuff, but this could play out in the way that I just laid out, and it could actually, again, end up helping him. Not just with most American people, but, I'll tell you honestly, I support President Trump. He wasn't my first choice back in 2016, but he eventually certainly was my last choice when it came to him and Hillary Clinton. I voted for him gladly over her. But one of the things that I was sort of hesitant about is like, I like a president who really has well-versed in the Constitution and our rights. I want to make sure a president stays within their boundaries and they actually have a love for our founding documents and our Constitution. And I'm not saying, I think Trump was a very, very good president, a great president, but he didn't always lead with our individual constitutional rights, our God-given rights protected by the Constitution. Frankly, I think that if he was more if those values and principles were more instilled and ingrained in his DNA, we might not have seen the lockdown. He might have said, hey, guys, Dr. Fauci, I think I understand what you're trying to say, but there's no way I'm going to endorse this because it's unconstitutional. Because every time this was tested at courts, it was found to be unconstitutional. Remember when they tried to keep you from going to church? But then ultimately courts said, you can't do that. So I think this has been as a conservative, it's been a blind spot for him. I like my conservatives to live and breathe the Constitution like it's flowing through their veins. Well, I think Donald Trump is now learning a great lesson in the Constitution, how critically important it is. For him to say the Constitution is more important than going to jail tells me that he's ready to rally even more support from diehard conservatives who have been waiting for this kind of thing to happen. Not for him to get jailed, but for him to lead with the Constitution and our rights every single time. Which brings us to today, as he was heading to the courthouse. Again, he made his usual stop. See, he changed his tie. He made his usual stop in front of the cameras to say a few words about the state of affairs in this country, considering the fact that the judge and the Democrats all across the board, it's all Democrats who are doing this to him, are keeping him from campaigning. This is basically his opportunity to campaign for president. So let's hear what he had to say.
The country is on fire. There are protests all over the country. I've never seen anything like this. Many graduation ceremonies are being canceled. They canceled, as you know, in Colombia, they're canceling a lot of them. And we have a president that just refuses to talk because he can't talk. You know that. So does everyone else. Some of the statements made about this witch hunt on CNN, fake news CNN, Michael Moore said the proof of falsifying records has not been accomplished. On Good Morning America, they said, we heard that expense payments to lawyers are legal expenses. You pay a lawyer expense payments. We didn't put it down as construction costs, the purchase of sheetrock, the electrical cost. The legal expense that we paid was put down as legal expense. There's nothing else you could say. You don't have to put down anything, I guess. But we put down legal expense was legal expense. Is that a correct statement, Mr. Attorney? And everyone's saying, oh, gee, that's the fraud. That's what they're trying to get us on. The fact that we call a legal expense. They marked it down in the books. The check was signed. And the other thing, this was approved by all agencies. Everybody saw this. There was nothing being hidden at all. That's what they're all writing now. There's been nothing hidden. And it went through agencies, and I guess it went through the IRS also. It went through IRS, it went through the FEC, it went through everything. Also, NBC Today showed the challengers that there is no smoking gun, no email or tape to prove the president's intent. They don't have a way to prove that. That's NBC Today show. And then Fox News, Katie Cherkasky, said that the gag order is unconstitutional. Which of course it is. The gag order is unconstitutional. So with all that's going on, they have no case. Every single legal scholar that I see, I mean, maybe there's somebody out there, some whack job, but virtually everyone that I've seen has said there's absolutely no case. It's a case that shouldn't have been brought. The previous DA wouldn't bring it. Bragg didn't want to bring it, and he brought it because I'm running in number one place. This all comes out of the White House and crooked Joe Biden. This comes from the White House, and it's all Biden because it's an attack on his political opponent. That hasn't happened in this country. It does happen in third world countries, but it hasn't happened in this country, and it's a shame. And the trial is a very unfair trial. It's a very, very unfair trial. The good news is they have nothing. Thank you.
Got a solid statement from President Trump. I only have two observations to make. The first is right in the middle there. He said, I won't see any legal analysts who haven't said that this is a fraud. There may be some whack job out there. Pretty sure by using the term whack job, he's referring to Jeffrey Toobin. I know it's a little on the nose, but when I think legal analyst whack job, Toobin's the only thing that comes to mind. Sadly, I mean, I need bleach in my eyes to get that vision out. But that's what I'm thinking. Also, right at the beginning, what Trump said here, again, solid statement and great for him to read off what CNN and the Today Show and other mainstream media outlets, corporate-owned media outlets who hate him had to say about how bad the trial is. So no problem with his statement, except for this right here. I think he's a little guilty of hyperbole here.
The country is on fire. There are protests all over the country. I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah, they've never seen anything like this. Mr. Trump, summer of 2020, first week of June, while you were in the White House, you looked out the window and you saw it right there in front of you. Black Lives Matter burning down the church in front of the White House at Lafayette Square. The protests, they had to clear them out with smoke bombs and pepper spray. I mean, I guess by saying he's never seen anything like this, I guess he's never seen anything like this so coordinated across college campuses and left unabated by Democrat governors in those states. But we saw some pretty bad stuff that summer. It was all part of the plan. And finally, politically, as I said, it looks like Donald Trump right now is ahead of the game on this case. That can change at any moment. Of course, today, the actress known as Stormy Daniels is testifying. So you know that news is going to be wall to wall with B-roll pictures of a big boobed porn star who allegedly had an affair with Donald Trump. Now, I think for some voters, that actually might help them. But, you know, a public opinion might be swayed by all of the tawdriness that they're going to throw at you today. That's the whole reason for this case. That's why I told you all you're hearing is hush money to a porn star, which is honestly not really the crux of this case, as you just heard. It's a financial records fraud case. It has nothing to do, well, it has a little to do with the hush money, but that's why they're calling it a hush money case. Hush money to porn star, hush money to porn star. And today's the porn star's day in the light, so we'll see. I mean, listen, one thing we know about Stormy Daniels is she literally will prostitute herself for $1. And so we'll see what happens and which way the wind blows while she's under oath today. But the two star witnesses they have is a porn star, a woman who prostitutes herself for money on a regular basis. That's what she does. It's her profession by definition. And Michael Cohen, the lawyer who just got out of jail for lying under oath in a similar courtroom setting. That's it. That's what they got. And they still might get their conviction. Don't get me wrong. They absolutely might get their conviction. But if Donald Trump wins the day politically through this entire process, then one thing is really ironic and actually pretty critical to bear in mind. If this spells doom for the Democrats and this was a complete miscalculation, and this actually ends up in a strange way helping him, as it appears it already has, even if he gets convicted, then future presidents will actually owe it to Donald Trump for going through this, again, like a martyr, going through this crucible on their behalf. Because if it helps this guy in the long run, as much as I would love to see future presidents prosecuted, I've got a couple in mind that I would love to bring charges against. It'll never happen again. It never should have happened. It never has happened. And if Donald Trump actually comes out ahead politically because of this, it will never happen again. And you'll have Donald Trump to thank for going through this. Can your savings weather an economic storm? Think about what you've put away for the future, okay? Inflation can render cash virtually worthless. Real estate can crash like it did in 2008. Economies built on a mountain of debt can fall like a house of cards. there are very few physical assets you can invest in that can stand the test of time. Gold, however, gold has withstood as a valued form of money for millennia. It's why people are flocking to it now and why Birch Gold is busier than ever. Through a little known tax loophole, Birch Gold lets you convert a retirement account into a tax sheltered IRA in physical gold. And the best part is, it does not cost you a penny out of pocket. To learn more, text Larry to 989898 and claim your free info kit on gold. Let me ask you again. Can your IRA and 401k weather an economic storm? If not, call the people I trust. Birch Gold. Text Larry to 989898 and secure your savings today. Do you remember seeing this video from the campus of Ole Miss University? Now, this is when some of those frat guys came out and they were heckling and jeering at the pro-Hamas, anti-Israel protesters on their campus. You'll remember this guy, right? In the overalls, right? Well, as I show you this video, look on the right-hand side of your screen. You're going to see a gentleman in a black shirt come on. It happens for just 2 seconds. But this guy in a blue shirt for 2 seconds has apparently become the most important thing any of us has to think about, talk about, or care about when it comes to these protests that we're seeing on college campuses. Watch. There it was. All right. So let me just break down what you just saw. Then again, understand something. This is the only thing that matters to the media right now. That moment that you just saw. The woman to your left there being restrained by police officers, she calls herself a journalist, except she, with her camera, was emerging from the side of the lawn that had the protesters and was coming right at the counter protesters with her camera. And as you can see, being very combative and argumentative. And the frat boys were being, well, frat boys. In fact, I'm seeing a lot of beverages involved. There may have been 1 or 2 adult beverages. It is the SEC. It is springtime. It's the last couple of weeks of the school year. And did I mention they are frat boys? And the guy on the right jumped up and down and we are told that he was imitating a monkey or ape of some kind in a racist, derogatory way toward the journalist. All right? And now we've got a controversy. But the controversy has blown up into, well, something rather incredible. That not that guy is a racist and a problem. And by the way, he's been expelled from his fraternity for that little 2-second moment that you just saw. Not just that guy is a racist. No, also the fraternities are all racist white supremacists. And oh, by the way, so is the entire university. Ole Miss University is full of white supremacists and racists. And by the way, anyone who doesn't agree with the intifada that is being demonstrated on these campuses unlawfully, full of vandalism and God knows what, and chants of anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish sentiment. If you don't agree with them, then you're a bigoted, racist, white supremacist too. That's what the media has done with this. That's what the left has done with this. So witness this debate that happened on Todd Starnes' show on Newsmax right here, where 2 people squared off. The first person you'll see thinks exactly what I just told you because of that guy for 2 seconds. And watch how this debate unfolds, where they actually have someone. This is a debate between 2 African-American men. One who just echoed what I told you about how we're all racist, and the other one who says, you're full of crap.
Well, I want to bring into the conversation Malik Abdul, who is a Republican strategist, and also Robert Patillo, who is a Democrat strategist. Welcome to you both. And gentlemen, the way this works, you can jump in and interrupt if you want to. I will try my best to play the referee or at least guide us through the conversation here. But Robert, I want to start with you. What's the big story to you coming out of Ole Miss?
Well, I think if you play the audio of the video, it's very clear. The young woman involved is a journalist who was trying to cover these protests. The fraternity brothers started calling her Lizzo, who's a plus-size entertainer, to make jokes about her weight. Then they started jumping up and down and making monkey noises at her while clapping their hands. This is in a Ole Miss tradition. Remember, it's up until only a few years ago that Johnny Rebel was the Ole Miss mascot. If you look at video of Ole Miss football games in the 1950s and 60s, it was Confederate battle flags being waved in the stadium. And I think this is very much what happens when white supremacists use the cover of social justice issues in order to execute their own plans and their own activities.
Well, hold on a second.
Well,
let me jump in here on that one, Robert. Let me jump in on that one because the young woman actually did an interview with local media. She acknowledged that she is the one who started the back and forth between the two groups here. And as you can see in the video, she was going forward towards this group when the police stopped and intervened. So again, she's the one, she acknowledges that she started it and she was giving as much as she was getting there.
You're damn right she was. Yeah, you're damn right she was. And I'm glad she did, because we're not a generation that's scared of white supremacists anymore. We're not going to back down when someone starts calling
how do you know they're white supremacists? How do you know they're white supremacists? How do you know they're white supremacists?
Because when someone starts jumping up and down and calling a black woman a monkey, that's exactly what they're doing. And you can defend that if you want to, but we will not give any
Nobody
shelter.
Called her a monkey.
We will
Nobody
not give
who called
any
her a monkey?
shelter or any quarter to anyone calling a black woman a monkey. They called her a monkey.
Nobody
did
jumped
that. Up and down, and that's the clear evidence that we have. And if you want to be on the side of the wrong side of history, that's what it will be. But we
hold on.
All the tropes, wrong side of history. It's always right. Yeah, I'm sorry. Being on the side of the state of Israel is not being on the wrong side of history. But you see what he's doing here. First, they called her a monkey, which of course nobody called her anything. Well, they called her Lizzo, which actually is kind of humorous, but it has nothing to do with her race. But then it's as Starnes is trying to point out, it's one guy, and he didn't call her anything. He behaved in a fashion that, I mean, I don't know if he's even admitted, yes, that's right, I was jumping up and down like an ape or chimpanzee. By the way, maybe I'm being pedantic, but there is a difference between a monkey and an ape. And objectively speaking, his behavior was ape-like, not monkey-like, but I'll set it aside right now. I don't want to split hairs. This person now, though, extrapolates it to, as you heard, the entire university is racist and full of white supremacists. After all, it's Mississippi. And, oh, by the way, they called her a monkey, which there's no they here. It's one person, and nobody was called a monkey. But that said, by the way, if this guy was mocking this woman and making ape-like noises, that's stupid. It's wrong. Could even very well be racist, although I don't know what's in his heart. You know, to be racist is to make a stereotypical statement about an entire group of people. He might have just been pissed off at this one woman and wanted to do something really. Have you ever been really pissed off at one person and you do something or say something that you know will hurt their feelings? That doesn't mean that you feel a certain way about the entire group or category that person happens to belong to. And again, I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying that unlike this guy, I'm not ready to leap to every conclusion that needs to be drawn. It could be that this guy, who, again, if that was what was in his heart, it's wrong, it's evil, it's terrible. I don't need to excuse anybody who's thinking that. But it could be that he just said, oh, they're all calling her fat, but maybe I can do this and that'll piss her off too, because she's coming at us. And so I'm now going to insult her. You can't then connect that dot to think this is how he thinks about every single person of a race, right? That would be wrong. But let's watch the debate go on further, because it's a good one.
Here,
individuals who
Robert,
do so.
Let me explain this to you. You're going to keep talking, but I want to explain this to you. One person, one student did that. Now, Malik, I want to bring you into the conversation here. What you just saw there at the University of Mississippi, is that a sign of white supremacy, as Robert just alleged here?
Well, unless Robert is referring to the 3 seconds from when we actually saw the gentleman, it was 3 seconds of about a 54-second clip. There weren't people actually cheering or even praising anything. If you actually look at the video, it's pretty clear that people weren't even paying attention to this guy. The fraternity did what it was supposed to do. It said that it condemned the racist actions and it kicked him out. But this is the strategy of the left. Of course, now it has to be about race, because one guy in a sea of many guys, one guy for 3 seconds did something that the fraternity that he belonged to considered racist. But what I would like to see is this same sort of energy, this same sort of calling out the other side when it actually refers to Black Republicans. Just last week, it was Representative Donalds who was called an Uncle Tom. I didn't see this sort of anger. I didn't see this sort of even concern when it's him, Senator Tim Scott, or many of us who exist in this space where we call coons and Uncle Toms each time. What I would like to see in some consistency, sure, call out this guy, the fraternity actually did that, but to characterize this as we're now feeding into white supremacy, or even that the guys who were out there are white supremacists when they weren't even cheering or jeering anything that guy was doing. It is just factually inaccurate. But fortunately, in this case, we have a 53-second video to actually make that sort of rational judgment.
Robert, what do you make of that? I mean, that's an interesting point, that you've got a lot of Black Republicans out there, Black Trump supporters, and they're called every name out of the book. I don't see anybody raising concerns about that.
No, I think you do all the time. And also, I remind people, Uncle Tom was the hero of that book. Uncle Tom is who actually was defending a female slave from being whipped in that book. So to the people who think Uncle Tom is an insult, Uncle Tom was the hero.
You know what they're talking about.
Uncle Remus, who was the villain of that book, if you remember literary history from middle school. But at the same time, I don't think that absolves these members, because it was one just one student.
It was one guy, Robert. It was one guy.
And I don't quite understand why Republicans can't simply say, this one guy. As Malik says, this one guy we will throw out of the brotherhood of Republicanism, and we will say that they were wrong. Instead, there's this response of we have to defend these individuals, even when someone is jumping up.
Nobody's defending him, though, Robert. Nobody's defending him. Robert, nobody is defending him. No one is defending him, Robert. This is the strategy of the left. I understand that this is how you guys have to win elections. It was one person, Robert. One person out of what probably were 800.
Out of Georgia.
All right. Let me jump in here, guys. All right, hold on, Robert. Hold on. Malik, I want to give you a chance to respond to that. And again, to your point, it was one.
So you can see how fiery it gets, and we like that. We like fiery, and it's good to have them both butting heads. But the point needs to be made here. How often over the last 20 or 30 years have we seen Clarence Thomas depicted as a lawn jockey, as the porch, you know what, as an Uncle Tom, as was just pointed out? How many racist depictions did we see of Susan Rice or of Colin Powell when they worked for Republicans? This is ubiquitous. When the left doesn't like a person of color, they are the most racist in how they treat them. And nothing is allowed to be said about that. There's no criticism at all, and certainly not from this guy. But now we have to pull this 3 seconds and decide not only is he racist, but his fraternity's racist. Anyone opposing the protesters are racist. The college is racist. The SEC's, America is racist. Let's burn it all down. Because they're dying to get Black Lives Matter back. They're probably a little jealous that the anti-Semitic, anti-Israel protesters are stealing all the thunder. Let's see a little bit more as this develops, because it stays fiery.
One person, and the instigator, the young woman, actually acknowledges that she instigated all of this.
Well, if you actually saw what earlier stills of what was happening, she was giving them the middle finger on the other side of the barrier. At some point, she then crossed the barrier. And again, it was one person. And I think that we need to do so much better than when you have one incident in a sea of what could be well over 100 guys, and then to now say the narrative now is is that this is some type of fight against or amplifying white supremacy, it is factually incorrect. It is intellectually dishonest, and we should be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. The fraternity called it out. The fraternity said that it was racist. That does not mean that we need to actually castigate the entire body of people who were out there protesting what this woman said clearly was part of what she was provoked. He was wrong to do it. Let's acknowledge that, but let's not call these other guys who were out there white supremacists. That's the strategy of the left.
Robert, I'm going to give you the final word here.
Look, if Malik is a Mississippian, so this is home territory for him, and I'll give him that. If he's used to people calling him monkey, by all means, enjoy that. But for me, I'm going to stand up for the black woman who is standing up against the white supremacy. I'm going to stand up for the freedom of speech for a black woman who wants to defend herself. I'm going to stand up for the freedoms of a black woman who's a journalist to call out those individuals who want to put us back into, as Nina Simone said, spare this country Mississippi's fate, because we see that that's still going on
or as
today.
Joe Biden said, put us back in chains.
I hope he keeps going.
And actually, I think the young man
intellectually
involved is
dishonest.
actually from Texas. So
It doesn't matter to them.
I honestly, my favorite part of this entire thing is that those guys just decided to laugh at him and to mock him. And thank you. Yes, Joe Biden said to put us all back in chains. And it just goes on and on and on. And nowhere in that entire conversation, strangely, was actually any mention of the fact that the protesters, the center of what this is all about, why those frat boys were even wasting a beautiful day in May in Mississippi to heckle and taunt these people who have taken over and defiled and defaced their college campus right before graduation. No one mentions the fact that it's not just one person from the pro-Hamas protesters. It's not just two people. It's all of them on a regular basis, chanting slogans that demonize, villainize, and call for the extinction of the Jewish people. For some reason, that doesn't get any sort of navel gazing from this dude here, who really only cares about lying about what this one dude did against the, reporter. But it's kind of ironic, isn't it? That kill the Jews can be chanted. And, well, that's just a political thing. That has nothing to do with race or bigotry or hate speech. Weird how that didn't creep in to the talking points. That said, while we're talking about racism, while we're analyzing what's racist, while we're trying to decide whether one guy jumping up and down on the campus of Ole Miss for 3 seconds is racist or not, how about we analyze what the governor of New York said yesterday? Because I don't think there's any gray area here. I don't think we have to split hairs. I don't think we have to do any special exegesis on her words and maybe parse the statement out. What you're about to hear from the Democrat governor of New York is flat out 100% Deep South civil rights era KKK bigotry.
Young black kids growing up in the Bronx who don't even know what the word computer is. They don't know. They don't know these things. And I want the world open up to all of them, because when you have their diverse voices innovating solutions through technology, then you're really addressing society's broader challenges.
Black children in the Bronx don't know what the word computer is. I mean, you could have said children in the Bronx are not well versed with computer science. You could have said children in the Bronx are not getting access to technology to be able to be as well versed in computers as other children in other neighborhoods. You could have said a lot of different things, but this was oddly specific and incredibly bigoted. Not just children in the Bronx, black children in the Bronx. We needed to specify which child. There's a lot of children in the Bronx. I've been to the Bronx. It's like the UN up there. Every single race, faith, ethnicity, everyone's there. But we singled out the black kids. And it's not just that they don't know computers, they don't know the word computer. I mean, they're just not illiterate with computers. They're illiterate across the board. That's the governor of New York. I'm going to spend a little time breaking down these 20 seconds because it's just exquisitely beautiful.
Young black kids growing up in the Bronx who don't even know what the word computer is.
Don't even know what the word computer is. By the way, she's the governor of New York. She has been a Democrat holding elected office or power in the state of New York for many years. And Democrats have been in charge of the state of New York and certainly the public school system for many years, especially in the city of New York, of which the Bronx is one of the 5 boroughs. So if a young black child in the Bronx doesn't even know the word computer in the year 2024, what kind of self-incriminating damnation of her own political party is that? Who's been in charge of education in the Bronx for, I don't know, the last 100 years? Who's in charge of the curriculum? Who's in charge of funding the schools? What party is in bed with the teachers union? If it's true that a young black kid in the Bronx doesn't even know the word computer, who should we blame for that? Her and her party. But there's more. I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe in the middle of this, she realized what she had just said. And she had to immediately do some kind of U-turn without admitting what she had just said. She had to salvage it. And so the next thing you're going to hear is it's such gobbledygook word salad pulled off of the tree of intersectionality, diversity, equity, and inclusion, left-wing Marxist claptrap that it could have been written by Kamala Harris's speechwriters. This is the part of the statement everyone's, focusing on, the appropriately offensive and bigoted young black kids from the Bronx have never heard the word computer or don't know the word computer. But listen to this next part. We're going to break it down because I need you to explain to me what the hell she's talking about.
They don't know. They don't know these things. And I want the world open up to all of them, because when you have their diverse voices innovating solutions through technology, then you're really addressing society's broader challenges.
So they don't know the word computer, but we want to have what now?
Because when you have their diverse voices innovating solutions through technology,
their diverse voices innovating solutions through technology. I mean, she got diverse, she got innovation, she got technology all in there. I mean, you got a bingo card going, you're real close to winning the jackpot. What does any of that mean? We want their diverse voices innovating through technology, although they don't know the word computer. That's beautiful. That should win an award. I know they just gave out the Pulitzers. I guess we got to wait till next year.
Because when you have their diverse voices innovating solutions through technology, then you're really addressing society's broader challenges.
She makes Kamala Harris look like the smartest woman in the world. Kamala Harris probably leads the Democrat Party's Mensa convention compared to this woman. What in God's name does any of that mean? We want their diverse voices innovating solutions through technology. But, they'll applaud her. Oh, my God, she's so smart. She's so much smarter than the rest of us. Thank God we have her in place right now. We don't deserve leaders like that. Well, that's true. We do not deserve leaders like this. So where's the fallout from this one?
Young black kids growing up in the Bronx who don't even know what the word computer is.
I love that we just listened to a 10-minute debate on whether somebody's actions at Ole Miss for 3 seconds was bigoted or not. But here we got the real kahuna. We got this is it. There's no guesswork here. Is there any explanation for that other than racism? Any at all? You can call it condescension as well, patronizing perhaps, admission of failure, which again, I want to reiterate, if she's right, and she's not, but if she's right, it's because of the failure of her own Democrat Party apparatus that controls education in the state of New York. But here's how I know that every young black kid in the Bronx knows full well the word computer. In fact, I know that they can work a computer. You know how I know? Because they've got one of these, just like the rest of us do. They all have a computer in their pocket. I love it when that we need to make sure that people have access to technology. They have more access to technology in their hip pocket than most generations, well, than all generations since the existence of humankind. And I assure you, they can work apps better than you can, Grandma Boomer. You wonder why the black vote is moving away from condescending, patronizing, idiot bigots like this. And, well, it's pretty obvious. But can we explore some of the other things Kathy Hochul has said just this last weekend? Because when she wasn't talking to the Millikan Institute at their conference, she was talking to the Clinton Global Initiative. Because, you know, now that there's a Democrat in the White House, the Clinton Global Initiative is making money again. They had to take 4 years off because they weren't able to bilk any money from people wanting to do business with the White House. That's how they make all their money. But listen to this one. It's another great little gem from Kathy Hochul.
When we think about all this, what's going on, it's a well-funded, coordinated effort to destroy the rights of the LGBTQ community, but particularly, this as a mom is really hard, the attacks on our kids, our trans kids, particularly. My God, don't you have anything else to do? You're picking on children, picking on young people who are struggling internally themselves, trying to find themselves. Who am I? And yet the bigots and the far-right extremists are hell-bent on keeping this up because they think it scores political points. They don't care who the collateral damage is. We don't care if we hurt you. We don't care that our hate speech is pushing you to consider suicide. We don't really care about that. But we think this is going to play well in the red states and help their political ambitions. How pathetic is that? How pathetic is that?
Well, there's something pathetic here, but it's not what you think, Kathy Hochul. Now, we're going to break this statement down too. It's only a minute long, but there's plenty to unpack. But first, because she called people who are trying to protect children from genital mutilation, called us bigots. So let's just remind the woman calling you a bigot because you're trying to protect children from genital mutilation just said this.
Young black kids growing up in the Bronx who don't even know what the word computer is.
She called you a bigot. According to her, you're the bigot. Okay, now let's break down exactly what she had to say here.
When we think about all this, what's going on, it's a well-funded, coordinated effort to destroy the rights of the LGBTQ community, but particularly.
I just want you to know it's not well-funded and it's not well-coordinated. Wish it were, by the way. That would be great. If there is anyone out there looking to fund this and protect our kids, please do so. Write a big check because I think it's worthwhile doing. But
this as a mom is really hard. The attacks on our kids.
Let me be clear here, Governor Hochul, because, you know, obviously you've never had a conversation with somebody like me. You disregard us. You think that we're, as you just said, bigoted, redneck, racist extremists. We're not attacking kids. We're attacking you. I'm sorry if you didn't catch that. I'm sorry if you thought that our ire and our anger was directed toward children. No. You're the problem, ma'am. You are. You and your party, and you talk about well-funded. You talk about well-funded. Look at Human Rights Campaign. Look at NARAL. Look at Planned Parenthood. Look at the pharmaceutical industry. They're the ones pushing all of this. That's pretty damn well funded, and they're paying your checks, honey. Our attacks are not on children. We're actually trying to keep children from having puberty blockers, from having their growth stunted, them being sterilized, them not being able to ever experience sexual pleasure when they're adults, because that's what all those pharmaceuticals do. And of course, the aforementioned genital mutilation. We're protecting children. We're not attacking them. We're attacking you. So let's not confuse this. And I'm sorry that that wasn't clear, because I think we've been very clear. You're the one that we're directing our hate toward, our anger toward, our energies toward. Yeah, that's right. Hate. I hate anyone who damages children like this.
Our trans kids, particularly.
By the way, trans kids. Up until 15 years ago, the word trans kids was non-existent. There was no such thing. But now it's like it's written in stone for the dogma of the left. Trans kids. That breaks my heart even hearing that word. Why can't she just look at a child and see her as a child? Why can't she just see a child and see him as a child? Why does it have to? You're not just a child, you're a trans child. That, by the way, is bigoted in and of itself. Look at that little human being for who he or she is. And it's either he or she, by the way, ma'am.
My God, don't you have anything else to do? You're picking on children, picking on young people who are struggling internally themselves, trying to find themselves.
Yeah, listen, all kids are struggling internally, especially when they're about to go through puberty, trying to find themselves. I get it. That's literally universal. Every child goes through that. You know what you don't want to do at a time like that? Tell them that God made them wrong. Tell them that God made a mistake when they were created. Oh, I know that you're struggling to find yourself and trying to figure out who you are. But here, maybe this will help. You're a mistake. Your body is wrong. You need to take these drugs to stop it, or maybe have this procedure to completely alter it forever. I don't know. Maybe it's me, but I think that's not the compassionate thing to say to kids who are struggling to find out who they are. How about you tell them you're perfect the way you are? Everyone has challenges. Everyone has troubles. The solution isn't to dump pharmaceuticals into your system to stunt your growth and future sexual development. But apparently the enlightened position is what you're hearing from the governor of New York, who, by the way, I would like to remind you, just said this about black children.
Young black kids growing up in the Bronx who don't even know what the word computer is.
But, oh, please get on your sanctimonious high horse and lecture me about how I should be treating children, considering what you think of black children in the Bronx.
Who am I? And yet the bigots and the far-right extremists are hell-bent on keeping this up because they think it scores political points. They don't care who the collateral damage is. We don't care if we hurt you. We don't care that our hate speech is pushing you to consider suicide. We don't really care.
Yeah, that's been thoroughly debunked. In fact, it's the opposite of the equation. If you actually nurture these children along the path of gender reassignment, the most recent expansive study out of Western Europe shows that they actually will be more inclined to harm themselves. There is another expansive report, medical report out of Western Europe that shows for the vast majority of children who are going through some sort of gender confusion before puberty or in the onset of puberty, they grow out of it. It is a phase. You help them out, you talk with them, you treat them with respect and love, and they will make their way through it without any extraordinary alterations to their body, to their name, to their clothing, to anything. And finally, Kathy Hochul, talking about being on the wrong side of history, how about you jump on board with the people in the United Kingdom and in Sweden and in Finland? You know, all of those socialist utopias that you lefties always brag about. I wish we were more like Norway. Well, they've all ended these draconian, barbaric procedures that you're now embracing and forcing on our children. Why are you on the wrong side of history? Why are you on the wrong side of the enlightened social democrats of Sweden, for instance? You know, the country that invented a sex change operation. What a fool. What an absolute evil fool. But she wasn't even done yet at the Clinton Global Initiative. There's more.
I learned as a young activist on my college campus the power of when you can use voices to get businesses to change their policies, great things can happen. And I'm referring to, and I'm this old, we were fighting apartheid back in the 70s. And I, as head of student government and representative of the board of trustees, we decided that Our university should no longer be investing in companies that are doing business in South Africa because you're supporting apartheid. It was a nationwide movement starting on college campuses. When we got our universities to feel the shame to divest their holdings, all of a sudden it started collapsing. They began pulling out of South Africa. That's how a few committed people, activists, can make a difference.
Now, you've heard Kathy Hochul, that woman right there, the governor of New York, and a lot of other Democrats, including Joe Biden, claim that they're in favor of the rule of law. And although they support free speech, they're very much against what you've been seeing on college campuses, the unlawful encampments and the bigotry and the anti. They claim that they're against that and it should end. But understand what you just heard from her. She just empowered those dirtbags even further. She just took the side of the pro-Hamas dirtbags who have been soiling campuses in her state. Forget about what they say about, oh, no, yeah, we're against this. No, they're 100% for it. She just empowered them by comparing their cause to the anti-apartheid cause of the 80s, and she just further gave them oxygen. She just gave tacit approval to the entire thing. Either she is maniacal in her duplicity for saying one thing before the cameras about how she wants those illegal protests to end, while at the same time giving a not so veiled comparison to them and the anti-apartheid movement of the 80s. She's either completely maniacal in her duplicity, or she's an absolute moron for not connecting the two. Because what she just said is undeniably a direct connection. And there's one more. Now, this one's a bit of a throwback, but this tells you who Kathy Hochul is. Can I just remind you that just yesterday she said this about a little black boy?
Young black kids growing up in the Bronx who don't even know what the word computer is.
That is a bigot. That is a prejudiced, bigot racist who thinks that black people are stupid. But this woman continues to talk and talk and talk, and boy, the things that come out of her mouth. Here's a throwback from the good old halcyon days of the vaccine. I had not seen this video, but I think you might appreciate it.
I prayed a lot to God during this time. And you know what? God did answer our prayers. He made the smartest men and women, the scientists, the doctors, the researchers. He made them come up with a vaccine. That is from God to us. And we must say, thank you, God. Thank you. And I wear my vaccinated necklace all the time to say, I'm vaccinated. All of you. Yes, I know you're vaccinated. You're the smart ones. But you know there's people out there who aren't listening to God and what God wants. You know this. You know who they are. I need you to be my apostles. I need you to go out and talk about it and say, we owe this to each other. We love each other. Jesus taught us to love one another. And how do you show that love? But to care about each other enough to say, please get vaccinated because I love you. I want you to live. I want our kids to be safe when they're in schools. I want you to be safe when you go to a doctor's office or to a hospital and are treated by somebody. You don't want to get the virus from them. You're already sick or you wouldn't be there. We have to solve this, my friends. I need every one of you. I need you to let them know that this is how we can fight this pandemic, come back to normal, and then start talking about the real issues that we have to. Fighting systemic racial injustice, which exists today. And if there's a denier, I will take you on any day because I've seen it. I know it exists. And we are not going to have a blind eye to this ever again any longer under my.
That woman is an absolute loon. There's no two ways about it. The vaccine is a gift from God, and I need you to be my apostles to evangelize and spread the word. And then once we get the pandemic, we can get to the things that are really important, like systemic racism. Ooh, wait a minute. Speaking of systemic racism, one more time? Yes, let's do it one more time.
Young black kids growing up in the Bronx who don't even know what the word computer is.
Well, you got to hand it to her. The pandemic's over, and now she is addressing the real problems, the systemic racism. Governor Hochul, the call's coming from inside your house. If you were the richest man in the world, would you worry about anything? I mean, imagine being the richest man in the world, the inventor of an electric car that has taken the country and the world by storm, owner of a social media platform where you could say whatever it is you want. And you also have been part and parcel to inventing a brand new space age on the planet that will not only potentially take humanity to Mars to colonize that planet, but also boost space tourism so anybody can go up and orbit the planet if they wanted to. Imagine being that guy. Of course, you know I'm talking about Elon Musk. Would you have a care in the world? What would keep you up at night? Well, he was also at this Milken Institute Global Conference. And, well, he was asked, what keeps you up at night? And his answer might surprise you, because the things that keep him up at night are actually the things that keep you up at night.
What keeps you up at night and what gives you joy?
Well, I think kids give me joy. So I probably get the most joy from my kids. You know, I'm not saying that that's the reason to have kids, because we should have them anyway, but I certainly, kids are the greatest source of joy in my life. In terms of what keeps me up at night, I guess it's anything that's like, I think, a civilizational risk. You know, if we're, you know, birth rates continuing to plummet, I do think about the birth rates plummeting as being a civilizational risk. I think anything that undermines the foundations of democracy in America or elsewhere as a risk. I think anything that's leading us away from a merit-based system is a risk.
He's got a little bit more to say about that, but that right there, you know, especially that last thing, anything that leads us away from a merit-based system, that's DEI. That's equity. The equity is all about, you know, equitable outcomes for people. In other words, it doesn't matter, not based on merit. You know, we want you to have the same outcome, even if you don't deserve it, or even if you didn't work hard, or even if you're not worthy of having it. That's why he's so against DEI. But then he turns specifically to the immigration crisis in this country and the open border.
You can hop across the border in the South trivially. It's just like very easy. I went to the border myself just to see like, what's going on? Is this real? Or like, is this propaganda or real? And so I just went there and I'm like, oh, it is real. Okay. This is crazy. You know, we've got situations where people are pouring across the border like it's World War Z. I'm like, this doesn't seem healthy. So I'm like, are we checking anyone here, or like, what's going on? And you know, we don't. This is not to say that. I mean, I'm a big believer in immigration, but to have unvetted immigration at large scale is a recipe for disaster. So I'm in favor of greatly expediting legal immigration, but having a secure southern border. So there's some vetting of who comes into the United States. I think this is just sensible.
So it's a recipe for disaster to have a wide open border, which is what we've experienced for over 3 years now under the Biden administration. He saw it for himself. Recipe for disaster. And frankly, I think the recipe has already been put together and the cake has been baked. We're just waiting for that cake to blow up in our face. It may be too late to turn the tide on what we've seen, the disaster that we've seen over this administration. But you've got Elon Musk, who, like him or not, you got to respect his intelligence, his understanding of the world around him, and his understanding of science and technology and how things should work. And he says that that's a recipe for disaster. And he also called what now a civilizational danger?
The greatest source of joy in my life. In terms of what keeps me up at night, I guess it's anything that's like, I think, a civilizational risk. You know, if we're, you know, birth rates continuing to plummet, I do think about the birth rates plummeting as being a civilizational risk. I think anything that undermines the foundations of democracy in America or elsewhere as a risk. I think anything that's leading us away from a merit-based system is a risk.
All right, so these are all civilizational risks, not just political talking points that we need to debate and reach resolution on, not formations of political movements that we can create, although all of those things that he just mentioned have been the formation of the political movement of the left, the moving away from a merit-based system. And, oh gosh, they hate the birth rates. They want the birth rates to be non-existent. They actually think that the world is overpopulated and our nation is overpopulated. It's actually the opposite problem that we have here, but they hate humanity. So the left embraces every single thing that he just called as a civilizational risk and a recipe for disaster. Now, Elon Musk, I guess, doesn't try to get political, but it's fascinating to me that this man, who has suddenly become pretty outspoken about issues, not necessarily in a partisan way, but more in a common sense way, to just say this doesn't work. And then Elon Musk is all about what works and what makes sense, right? That if you dissect his public statements and his positions on things, he often comes back to that. Well, that's a recipe for disaster, risk to civilization. See, things aren't going to work if you keep doing it this way. It's very practical. It's very pragmatic. And I think he's open to it. He's like, listen, if that works, then I'm for it, because let's do things that work. But I don't think anybody can look at the world around us right now and recognize that the stuff that he just laid out as his number one civilizational concerns and the recipe for disaster that is our open border, and say that any of that is working. None of it is working. And by the way, when he says anything that might undermine the foundations of democracies, I'm with that. I know the left likes to throw around the term democracy at risk. Democracy is at risk. There really is a risk to democracy right now. When you have the authoritarian instincts of Joe Biden and his party in office, trying to throw their opposition into jail with a show trial. When you have jurisdictions wanting to give the vote to non-citizens in this country, you know, the District of Columbia right now, our federal capital city, has now passed. It hasn't been approved. It's being fought, but they want non-citizens to be able to vote. Does anything undermine the democratic foundations of this country than allowing non-citizens to vote? What's the point? What's the point? And talk about foundations of democracy. You know, 8 million people, it's estimated on the low end, I think it's more, have come across the border illegally in just the last 3 years, and they're all still here. Wherever they're living right now, they will be counted in the next census, and the region that they're living in will get more congressional representation. And lines for congressional districts will be redrawn, and congressional seats will be reallocated. And the Electoral College in our constitutional republic of the United States of America will be reformulated based on all of those millions of people and where they live now. The Electoral College and the makeup of congressional districts and representation on a per state basis does not take into account whether you are a citizen or not, whether you are here in this country legally or not. If you are living here, regardless of your immigration status, you are counted, and then you get representation. So if you've got 8, 10, 15 million people who are citizens of other countries who have entered here illegally, and now they're living in places where they will get representative in Congress, and that state that they're living in will get extra votes for the Electoral College, that undermines the foundations of our democracy. Without a doubt. It undermines the democratic process we use to elect people in our constitutional republic. We are not technically a pure democracy. We are a constitutional republic, but we use the democratic process to select the people who hold elected office. And everything that Elon Musk just laid out, everything that is keeping him up at night, everything that he says is a civilizational risk is happening right now before our eyes. And there's one more clip of him. He was asked why he moved Tesla's headquarters to California. And he spoke specifically about California, but then opened it up and encompassed everything that's going on with Democrats who are in power, either at the state level or at the federal level. Watch.
If year after year there are more laws and regulations passed and more regulatory bodies created, eventually everything will be illegal. And that's why you see the California high-speed rail has made a tiny section that doesn't even have rail on it, for, I don't know, several $1 billion. Because everything's, at this point, California has made almost everything illegal. So you can't make progress. Most poignant example that I can think of that happened this week was the sad picture of the California high-speed rail, which is, it's just billions of dollars spent for practically nothing. But it'll only get worse year after year. So we must have a regulatory sort of clearinghouse, garbage collection process. This is essential, or civilization comes grinding to a halt.
Once again, a civilizational risk by overregulating. And he's right. You regulate, there's so much regulation that pretty much anything will be illegal. You cannot do anything. The government spending tens of billions of dollars that they should have never spent on high-speed rail from Fresno to San Francisco. Who the hell is going from Fresno to San Francisco? On this high-speed rail line, it was the crown jewel of Gavin Newsom's vision for his new California, and nothing's been done because of regulations, because of the environmental hazards, because of the studies, because of this, because of that. Of course, it's over budget. It's going to be 5 times the budget if they continue with it. They should stop it. They should stop it immediately and just take the loss. Nobody's going to ride the freaking thing anyway, so who cares? But he points out that when you overregulate something, you can't do anything. And you need to understand something. Elon Musk has built factories all around the world. He has operated all around the world. So he knows how we are compared to other countries. And sure, there are some countries who are worse, but there's a whole lot of countries who are better. And he sees which way we're going, especially in a state like California. When you make so many regulations, eventually everything will be illegal. What Elon Musk needs to realize is that that's the point. That's the goal. See, the Marxist left in America or in any society around the world, ultimately, their existence, their oxygen, their food is power, power and control. And when everything's illegal, then they get to pick and choose who gets stopped, who gets arrested, who gets fined, and most importantly, who doesn't get arrested, who doesn't get stopped, who doesn't get fined. It's always their friends. As long as you're pals with the authoritarians, you're going to be fine. But they get to pick and choose the winners. And by the way, another word for that is equity. We get to pick and choose who has the outcome that we desire. You take those regulations away, you make more things legal and free than illegal and imposed, and suddenly you have a free market competition where the best will rise. The winners will be the ones not who get chosen by the few in power who control everything. The winners will be the ones who innovate and actually work harder and actually do something that there's a demand for. Unlike the high-speed rail in California, which they can't even do that right. Listen, I know a lot of people have very strong opinions about Elon Musk, and I get it. And that's fine. We should all have strong opinions about whoever we want and whatever we want. But when the richest, most successful man in the world is telling you something, you're an idiot if you don't at least listen and think about it. And one other thought about Elon Musk, after hearing all of that, after hearing everything that keeps him up at night and all of the things that he's concerned about that he continues to say is a civilizational risk, it is shocking to me to reflect on the fact that he has recently said that his entire life he has never voted for a Republican. Did he just start figuring all of this out? Frankly, I don't believe it, but I guess I have no reason to not believe it. Hey, that's it for today's show. I appreciate you watching us. We had a blast. Make sure. Oh, by the way, yesterday's show, you'll never guess the most popular segment that we put out, because we break out these segments separately every day. So if you don't want to watch the entire show, you can always just grab the separate segments that we put out through the afternoon. The most popular, most shared, most viewed, most rated segment from yesterday's show, the president pooped his pants in front of the Pope. I adore you people. Well done. You make me feel alive. So proud of you. That's it for today. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. My name's Larry O'Connor. Please call me Larry.